we did find that their academic self-efficacy scores improved way more than we were than I was expecting, but maybe you were expecting it, I don't know. But I think when we think about those populations of students who don't see themselves very often or don't see success very often because the situation or the environment that they're in is set to restrict them in some way, it's actually quite powerful for them then to reflect and see the growth that they've had. But I'm waffling, you take us through this one.
Not at all. So this for me is a fantastic indicator that we're looking at the right things. Again, we cannot say X equals Y because that's just not the nature of human beings. Learning is complicated. The college experience is hugely developmental, but the college experience can only be developmental if you're able to engage with it. You know, and you and I have had long conversations about the word engagement and what that means. But I do think if you've got a barrier to engagement, which some of these students with additional needs might have, if we're reducing that barrier, then they're able to engage in terms of, you know, taking part in things and contributing to things. So is it a surprise, the volume difference? I don't know quite what I was expecting. It's logical to say we remove the barrier, we reduce the barrier, then more people can make the step. That's logical. One of the complexities in this research that I think is really worth digging into is that it's very difficult to know someone's additional needs status. I don't know if this is the right place to talk about that, but I do think it's really important. So a lot of the wider research says that students at college or level or above sometimes don't disclose their additional needs status to their college or university. Whether that's to do with fear of not having needs met, whether that's to do with historic experiences of not having accommodations made for them, whether that's to do with not really quite knowing what their own needs are in order to be able to articulate that. There's a whole complex set of reasons why someone might not tell their institution that they've got a need. Alongside that, we've got students who are receiving Genio directly as an accommodation in response to their disability. So when we're looking at our data, we had something interesting happen, which was we asked students, did they want to tell us whether they had an additional need? Now, some of the students who have the tool issued as an accommodation chose not to disclose, which is absolutely fine. And some of the students who don't receive it as an accommodation disclosed really complex and challenging needs, like multi-factor layers of additional challenge. So having said that, we haven't got a perfect map. We don't know actually what someone's additional needs status is. But this stat is that the students who received the tool as a disability accommodation with onboarding did use the tool far more and did far better. So that, I think, is the correlation. We're moving on, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I was just putting the stat up that backed up what you were saying there, because I think it's important to say that some people in the sample were given the license as part of their whole institution. So some institutions recognise that there are undeclared needs in their student population, so they buy tools like ours for their entire student population and give that equitable access to everyone. Some institutions only buy licenses for those who have declared needs and buy it through those routes, and we included all those types of scenarios in our sample. And it was really interesting, like you say, that some who didn't get it through a diagnosed declared pathway declared those additional needs to us, just proving that point that I think it's something like 60+% of people from the NCS data that those students had a diagnosis in high school but didn't declare when they got to college. So we know that happens, and it's about how do we support the majority of the student population.
Yeah, and that majority word is really key, isn't it, within the literature?
Yeah,
we haven't talked about new majority learners. We might come back to that in a moment, but the idea that actually, guess what, humans are complex. Guess what, it's really difficult to know what someone needs if they don't tell you. And what's beautiful to see is that more humans are going to college. That's brilliant. But I think what that means for colleges and for education institutions is we need to be more conscious of that, more aware of that, and more sensitive to the obstacles, and offering appropriate tools that are likely to have a positive impact for students. So yeah, this is the stat. Now, obviously, this is an education intervention. If you're watching this as a statistician, you'll be like, these are quite small responses. They are, but this is a 12-week study. So this is a really short-term study, and this is probably more than you would expect in a short-term study. It's already quite strong. And the interesting part for me is the difference between students who said, no, I haven't got any learning needs, or who chose not to disclose and who hadn't received it as a pathway, and students with learning needs. For me, this is one of our strongest indicators that Genio is making a difference for students with additional needs, because you can see the difference between those two populations quite starkly. It's quite a dramatic difference. Having said all of the caveats about it's difficult to know.